All right, good morning, everyone. We are so excited to have you here with us today, and we're going to be digging into how Classworks is your go-to for RTI and your tiered approaches, especially as we're working through what is a very unique school year. Thank you for hanging out with me for just a minute as I handled a technical difficulty. I do appreciate your patience. So before we get started, there are just a couple of housekeeping things that we want to talk about. The first one is, don't forget, you do need to go ahead and check in, and there's a link on the screen. This will help you enter into our daily prize raffles and giveaways. So if you haven't had a chance yet to check in for this session, you're going to want to do that. It's just like a digital passport. So the more sessions you go to equals the more opportunities you have, and you'll be receiving giveaways and opportunities for giveaways in addition to the certificate that you'll receive for attending the sessions that you've joined us for at the Fall Summit. So if you haven't had an opportunity, please make sure that you take advantage of getting checked in and on the list for one of our giveaways. So a couple of things that we're going to be doing as we get started is, as I said, we're going into Classworks and how we use our data. We do have a team from Classworks here with us today. So in addition to myself, we have Leona, and then manning chat, we have Kellen and Michael. And we're just going to introduce ourselves real quickly. So as we spend our 45 minutes, we can get to know each other a little bit. So I am Joanne Waltman. I am one of the curriculum and instructional specialists here at Classworks. I am home-based in Charleston, South Carolina, which is usually really awesome, but I am definitely ready for some crisp fall weather, and the humidity just doesn't seem to want to end right now. So Leona, how about you?
All right, I'm Leona Gray. I'm home-based in Atlanta, Georgia, and our weather's coming in pretty nicely. And I'm excited to be here with everyone today.
Hey there, I am Kellen Huntley. I am in around Boone, North Carolina, so I'm having a little bit of some beautiful fall weather. Sorry, Joanne, to twist the knife. But I'm excited to be on today, and I will be manning chat. So if you have any questions or technical difficulties, it's always great to come to me on the side and chat. That way the presentation can keep going. We would really love, we love everyone who, engages and asks questions, because it makes these interactive meetings just that much better. So I'm here in chat if you need me.
All right. So we will be in your platform. So as we're going through and looking at some different reports, I will, or Leona will have samples up on our screen, but we know that many different learners have many different styles, and you may want to have your own website up, either in a separate browser window, or if you're lucky enough to have two screens on a different screen. So as we're getting started, that might just be something to ensure that you're able to go ahead and get logged in. You can always minimize us when we get to that part, and that way, as we show you the different steps, you can follow along in real time. So before we get any further in, you've heard just a little bit about us, and we'd like to hear just a little bit about you. We're really excited to be offering this virtual Fall Summit. Generally, we're face-to-face with a small group, that might be in your same state, or just from teachers or leaders in a neighboring state. And it's really exciting for you to have the opportunity to learn from all different leaders and teachers from all of our different states across the country this way. So it's kind of a blessing that we're taking advantage of in this unique environment. So in the chat box, which I know you're probably really good at Zoom at this point, but you might also be a user for Google Meets or Microsoft Teams. If you bring your mouse down and hover it near the bottom of the screen or the window that you have open with the slide deck, you'll see the chat bubble pop up. It will look like a little thought bubble or speech bubble from a cartoon, and that's the one that you're looking for. So in chat, if you could just go ahead and let us know, what assessments do you use with Classworks? Do you use our screener? Do you use the Renaissance Star, the NWEA map, Scantron, AimsWeb? And if you use more than one, go ahead and type both of them in there. This really helps us make sure that when we're talking about the different pieces, that we cover all the bases. And you might find that a colleague from across the country is using the same assessment, and you might be able to build a collaborative conversation or kind of an offside professional learning community with each other. So I'll give you just a couple of minutes. Go ahead and get that one in. What assessment do you use inside Classworks? If you use more than one, go ahead and give us both. Right, and then the second question we'd love to know is just how many years have you been using Classworks? So we know that your school might be a long-term customer, but you might be brand new to Classworks. And so we're really curious about your experience with Classworks. So about how many years have you been putting Classworks to use for you and your students? Okay. So as you may have guessed from our title of today's session, we're all about that intervention piece. And we know you've been using individualized learning with your assessment partner and successfully filling and addressing your students' instructional needs. So maybe addressing some gaps below grade level, maybe digging in deeper on a grade level content skill, and then also for your above level learners, you might be extending their thinking. That's great. That's really what we're going to build off of today. So we're going to be talking quite a bit about the progress monitoring pieces of Classworks and how you can put those to work intentionally with your Tier 2 and Tier 3 students. So take a second in chat. How much have you used progress monitoring in the past? Has it been a part of your use of Classworks consistently, or as consistently as your students working on their individualized learning? Is it something that maybe you're using with a small group of students? But give us just a little bit of information about your use of progress monitoring. And if a question pops up and you want to type that in there as well, that's perfect. Kellen, Michael, they're both around, and they'll make sure that we circle back and touch base with those. And otherwise, we'll be following up at the end of the summit with some additional resources. Many different, seeing all kind. I'm not looking at the chat. I'm just looking at the number over here. We're some very attentive and participating people joining us today. Good thing on a Wednesday morning. Everybody's wide awake.
I know, and we've got some people that are new to Classworks, and then we have some veterans. It's a pretty great mix of folks on the call. I'm so excited.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so we're going to take a quick look at what our objectives are today. So I'm going to toss it on over here to Leona.
All right, so today's objectives. After today's workshop, you will be able to understand how Classworks is truly a partner where RTI is concerned. You'll be able to recognize how Classworks progress monitoring probes measure effectiveness and intervention. You'll really see how Classworks data and reporting support your RTI program, and you'll be able to identify which Classworks artifacts to include in your RTI documentation plans.
Okay. So one of the things that we're facing this year is we might not have our spring data. Many of our states, in fact, I think almost all of the states, received a waiver for the federal high-stakes assessments last spring. And you also might not have had an opportunity to get your spring assessment done, whether you would have used STAR or MAP or Scantron. Many of our schools were working all the way through just figuring out what remote or digital learning looks like for them, and when they were asked to do it at the drop of a hat, and we might not have that data. So how do we get started this year without that data? Well, we take a quick look at what do we have. So one of the pieces that you have that you may not have implemented before is the universal screener. The universal screener is a very handy tool, especially if we didn't have our spring assessment results, because that assessment that's embedded inside Classworks, it exists so that we can get our students started right away, and it's part of your product. It is a nationally normed assessment, which is a great benefit for you. It'll give you a percentile rank for your students. And because we're going to be talking about progress monitoring, it will also automatically connect for you what grade level should the child be progress monitored on based on their performance on the screener. So it ties everything together. It is nationally normed, and it is recognized by NCII as being valid and reliable. Now, we know that giving an assessment just for the sake of giving an assessment is not something we as teachers prefer to do. So one of the things to think about is how can you strategically use this assessment to help address gaps that might have been missed based on another assessment window, such as Link It, which is a grade level only assessment. So if I had students below level, I may need to use a screener to identify below level needs as well. Okay. So we're going to take a quick look at one of the reports that you can get from the screener. And I'm going to share that one with you right now. So one of the reports that you can get from the screener that's highly beneficial for both you as a teacher and your leaders in the building is our RTI Recommendations Report. So what this report will do is it'll break your students down. So if I scheduled this report by my class, and this is my class here on the screen, I can see how my students are doing and where they may have specific needs that we need to address. So if I look here, I have Stephanie. Stephanie and Hans are underneath the 10th percentile. I can also see by domains how they did, their overall score, which I can connect to a percentile rank for grade level and time of year. And then PM level. So when we dig into how progress monitoring works in Classworks, this is the grade level that this result indicates the child should be progress monitored on. I'll also see the date that the student took the assessment and how much time the child put into earning their assessment score. Most of the time, we see an average between 25 and 35 minutes on the universal screener. And so for students who spent less time than that, for example, Stephanie up here, you will see that she has a warning triangle underneath rush. And that lets the teacher know that she may need a mirrored form, another form of that assessment, to be administered to her so that she can take her time. And that might indicate a conversation needs to occur with Stephanie about the purpose behind this assessment. So we're going to take a look at what does it look like for a child to go in and do this assessment, because many times our students don't understand the purpose behind an assessment. So I'm going to log in as one of my students so you can see where this exists inside Classworks. So I have Audrey here. And when I log in as Audrey, you're going to see this green box, which we'll be talking about more in a little bit longer, a little later in. But underneath here is Take an Assessment. And this is where these assessments already exist inside Classworks. So if you have a student who enters your class or your school after your assessment window for math or STAR or Ames Web or Scantron closes, and you want to get a new point of data on that child without waiting for their cumulative file to come from their previous school, you can just have your students log into Classworks, click on Take a Test, and they will be able to take either the math or the reading language arts assessment. And you'll notice here that Audrey's already taken this assessment one time. but there's still a number 4 in this gray circle. That tells us that she has 4 more different forms of this assessment that she can take in the fall testing window. So very easy for students and for teachers. There's no lift on the part of the teacher to do this. And with one of our new enhancements this fall, this data will automatically generate that learning plan for your child. So it will not need the teacher to come in and do any additional clicking to get that to work. So very handy on that. So that's our assessment piece. We're going to go back in and we're going to actually look at a specific student who's taken that screener, and we're going to see what that's going to look like for that child. So we're going to take a look at Tiara. Tiara's a 3rd grader. You'll see she actually was in yesterday, so that's awesome. And I want to go ahead and take a look at how she did on this assessment. So here, by clicking on test data, I can see her math results. You'll see that she spent about that 25 minutes. She is above the target for fall for 3rd grade. And then here is her domain-specific scores down here. And they're all green, so she is above the target in all domains. I can toggle over and I can look at her language arts test. So just by clicking underneath language arts, I can see here she spent about that same time, about 25 minutes. Again, she met the target, matched it exactly. But if I look at her domain results, you'll see that she's not as consistent in language arts as she is in math. So if I'm looking at her to support and provide an intervention, I'm probably going to be looking more consistently at how she's progressing in language arts because she has some reds here. So I'm going to go up and take a look at her plan. So I'm going to click on individualized learning right here. And you'll see here's her plan. So Tiara's plan is structured again on our learning progression. So she's going to start on the earliest unit in that progression, the one that is the least complex or the most simple. And she's going to work her way up. And so she'll start with the very first unit at level 2. Remember, she's a 3rd grader, so she has some needs in language arts. And she's going to continue to work on these all the way up through all of these different grade levels. Now, a couple of things that can happen here, and we're going to look at the different filters we can look at. So the first thing I can do is I can see her overall mastery. She's doing great. I can see how many skills she's completed. Remember, we always talk about in our best practices, they need to have an 80% and they need to have a specific number of skills each month. Ideally, we look for anywhere between 4 and 7. So if near the end of the month and I'm looking at for the entire year, I might be looking at she's working at an 80, but she's really not adding skills to her tool belt right now. And then here's her amount of time. And I know from our best practices, we look for 45 minutes a week in each content area. So she's really not putting that amount of time in if she's been working since August. So that's some information I can use either as a teacher, an interventionist, or a coach. And I can have that conversation with my teachers as well as a building leader. You can filter by time period. So if I wanted this to be this current month, so in October, I wanted to know what she's done in October. Now I can see she hasn't mastered anything in October. She doesn't have any quiz scores yet, and it's the 21st. And she's spent 2 seconds. So that can have that conversation about time of year. And if I'm also monitoring for progress, I can look at last month, and I can see last month what she did, and then I can compare that to this month. So if I'm looking at seeing percentages increase month over month, I can use these filters to do that, or I can leave it at the current year and see a running average.
Hey, Joanne.
Yes.
If you don't mind, there is a question in here that I want to make sure that we get answered before we keep going. We have someone asking why you would start from the bottom and work up.
So you start from the bottom and work up, because many of the advanced skills as we go up through learning things in elementary school, any school, build on prerequisites. So if I'm thinking of this in regards to elementary math, I might be thinking about, when we start to introduce multiplication, we have our students build arrays. And, so you might have 3 times 4 and they lay out 3 dots 4 times, so they can see how 3 times 4 is repeated addition. And then we move that away from that physical representation into looking at the formula and understanding, what that multiplication sign really means. After that, we might add an area. We might ask our students to, area looks like an array. So if we're using it with Unifix cubes or centimeter blocks, we can just count those blocks like we counted the dots. But when we get up to using formulas again for area, we need them to understand and be proficient with properties of multiplication, different things with geometric shapes, 2-dimensional versus 3-dimensional. So we start at the lowest point based on their test result, and we find that earliest skill. And we lay them out in a teachable order so that we're always building skill upon skill, and from a simple piece or a prereq or a prerequisite standard that they may need to apply with proficiency later on. And so that's why it's ordered this way. And that is an awesome question. Teachers can customize this. I know if you go back in, take a look at our Kickstart for Smart Guide, it'll walk you through that process as well. But you can customize, but there is a different way also to look at this without doing the heavy lifting of customizing for every student. And that is, if I look back here at my test data, I can see one of her biggest area of need on here is reading with a 360. So if I go back up here and look at reading, I can actually just get my reading ones. So I'm going to get literary text. She's nothing there. Informational text. So this might tell me that I may have, so text structure, organization, and features, how's she doing on that lowest skill area? I can see how she's doing there. Theme and central idea, she hasn't gotten to summaries yet. So I can actually look by using these filters at those specific areas. And when I use one of these filters, it will adjust her overall mastery for just that area. So that is a technique that you can use to see how is she doing with a specific area of concern. And again, you can always customize. But one thing to keep in mind when we start to talk about progress monitoring in a little bit is that as your students work on progress monitoring probes, those lessons that reflect areas that are recognized on there that they need are going to be added to these plans. And these plans are going to be fluid. They're not going to change just 3 times a year for progress monitoring students. And you can actually see why a student has a specific skill unit by clicking on history and see where did it come from for that child. And you'll start to see progress monitoring is one of the reasons that a specific skill or specific unit may be added in. So I have my screener added this one in, and as you'll see as we begin to look in, you'll see that progress monitoring sends them over as well. 2 things about these screens to keep in mind. You can print these right from here. You can also schedule the reports like you always could, but when you print from here, this is a great way to track a specific tiered student's progress. And when I print this, it will automatically expand every single unit piece so that you can see how much time was spent on each individual piece and the score or the earned result from each individual piece. So definitely wanted to dig into that piece a little bit and some of the tools that are available there. and we're going to hop right back in and we're going to take a look at how do we monitor progress on a weekly basis. Leona?
All right. Thanks, Joanne. All right, everyone, we're going to pop in and look at progress monitoring a little bit closely. What I have done is I am in our demo site, and you are more than welcome to follow along with me in your own school site if that's helpful. If not, you can just follow along with me here. All I've done is gone over to our progress monitoring tab up here at the top. I've chosen my class, and here we are at my class. We can go ahead and begin here. So when you are progress monitoring students, you are able to generate reports. There are several ways to do that, but one of the quickest ways to generate a report is if I click right here on the student. I'm going to click here where it says below target. If I click right there, I'll get a screen that looks like this. If I want to see this in a more comprehensive view, I can click on print, click my parameters, go to preview. And then from here, click print. And it'll give me my full report here. Okay, so if we take a look at this report, there's some information here at the top, general information about the student. But then in the middle, we can see how the student is trending. If we notice the black dotted line, this is how the student is performing from week to week. Our blue line is our trend line, and the green line is the student's expected rate of improvement. And so right now, the student seems to be, well on their way. Last week, we can see that the student dropped quite a bit, and this week they are steadily moving upward. At the bottom of this report, you can see how the student is performing week to week. And this report is very good for conferencing with students. We see how they've performed. We see the test date that they actually took the probe. We can see their time spent in it, their score, and any observational notes that you may have taken while the student was completing the assessment. If I had to conference with this student, one of the things that I notice is their time on task here. Anywhere 4 minutes, 1 minute, 9 minutes, 24 minutes. They're all over the place with their time, but they seem to be rushing through the probes. And so one of the conversations that I would have with this student is to say, hey, it is extremely important to take your best and do your best and take your time when working on the progress monitoring assessment so that we can see how you are really performing here. So that's one of the things that I would use this report to do, is the conference with the student. Also, though, if we move down into the report, we can see the different domains that the student was being tested on. Here we have grammar usage, reading, study skills, word analysis, writing, and writing process. And we can see how the student performed in each one of those domains. Schools typically use this information to determine, measure, and adapt goals for specific students when needed. So that's one of the things that this report will help teachers do as well. I'm so sorry, here, jump right out. Okay. All right, if there are no questions about that, we're going to go back to our start screen. And this is—
Fiona, I do want to touch on something. We had one question. I apologize for interrupting. Tracy was asking if the teachers have to set up the probes each week, or does the program do it automatically? The teacher does need to start the probe, but each week for that 12-week duration, it is automatically assigned to the student.
Right. I was just getting to that. All good. If we pop back to our start screen, when you do get ready to start progress monitoring your students, and I noticed in the chat that some teachers had not started their progress monitoring yet, that's easy peasy. All you have to do is go back to our progress monitoring screen, and when you click on the start button, like Helen said, it does automatically start progress monitoring your students, and you do not have to go through and click anything else once you started them, and then their information will start to come in, and it will change from start to stop whenever you get ready. And then as they're performing, it'll let you know whether they are on target, above target, or below target. Once the interval starts for the students, the probes appear automatically each week. The ease of progress monitoring Classworks was by far some of the loudest feedback that we got during our remote learning. The progress monitoring probes are a curriculum sampling of everything that the students need to know at their performance level. And this allows you to closely follow the students' growth at their performance level with regular and real-time data and interventions. Stay relevant and reflect exactly what the students are ready to learn. If we go in, there we are. If we go in and look at what this looks like from a student view, I have screenshots here and my Zoom icons are getting in the way of my screen here. But if we take a look at our student view, this is what it looks like. So we look at George and we'll look at Missy here. And I've put them on two screens so you can see them kind of side by side. When Missy came in, we're going to pretend that everybody's in my class and today is Tuesday. When Missy came to school on Monday, she completed her progress monitoring probe and therefore her progress monitoring box disappeared. George, however, was absent on Monday. And so now that today is Tuesday, he will be able to take his progress monitoring probe. Once he takes this probe, his box will then look like Missy's and it will disappear until Monday of the following week. If, let's say, for example, Missy did not do well on her probe or she was absent, which she wasn't, I would have time during the week to reassess if necessary. But once that next Monday rolls around, you will not have access to these particular probes anymore. When you get ready to progress monitor your students, sometimes the students do not understand why they are being progress monitored. So it's best to explain to them why that's happening to them. It is important also to explain to students that they're using Classworks so that you, as well as the teacher, can closely watch or monitor how they are performing or progressing in different areas. Explain to students that their learning needs are also being tailored. Also explains that they will be conference with so that you, the teacher, and that they, the student, you guys can have a dialogue based upon how the student is doing from their perspective. It is also important to set clear expectations for students when they are being progress monitored so that they'll have a clear expectation of what they are doing as well. Classworks, we already talked about that. One of the things to note also is logistically, in your building, who will be responsible for progress monitoring your students, where will they go, etc. If we go back to the start screen here, once your students have started progress monitoring, whoever is going to give that progress monitoring to the students, this is going to be a very helpful screen. For example, if I want to know who took their progress monitored this week, I can simply go right here to this screen and I want to say who took their progress monitoring this week. I'm going to click yes, and it will give me some information. Nobody took their progress monitoring for this week. So if I wanted to go back and see who didn't take it, I can click on no, and it will give me my list back of who has not taken the progress monitor. So my students this week, we're behind. We need to go back and take our progress monitoring for our students. So let's go back and recap what we have learned. I'm going to turn this back over to you, Joanne. Oops.
Nope. Thank you very much. There you go.
All righty. All right. So when you place a student on progress monitoring, it is important to have clear understanding and reasoning as to why and what the outcomes are you are expecting. It is also important to ensure that students have depth and understanding of what they are doing. Set clear expectations regarding the weekly probe and how essential it is for students. Also set a regular schedule for when students will complete the probes. Provide students with necessary supplies such as scratch paper when working in math or reading strategies when working in language arts. Make sure that when conferencing with students that the conversation is meaningful and actionable for both you and the student. Use this conversation to emphasize the goal setting process. Decide who will be meeting with the students as well. When data or other indicators indicate that special education referral may be appropriate, we have an article on our help website that provides guidance on reporting domains to connect with areas of concerns. And if you look at the slide here, you can see the title of that article is Progress Monitoring and Specific Learning Disabilities. All right, Joanne, turning it back over to you.
All right. So we've gone through quite a bit of the logistics inside Classworks for progress monitoring, and I know you've had some questions. I've been seeing some of them come up in chat with Kellen answering them, and we're going to spend some time answering those in just a second. But as Leona was saying, starting progress monitoring on the teacher side is very straightforward and simple. You click start, you set the grade level, and your students are off and running for 12 weeks. As far as the student side of it goes, if your students don't understand the purpose behind why am I doing progress monitoring, they're going to avoid that green box, or they're not going to understand what's going to happen as a result of doing their progress monitoring. So you'll want to handle all of those 5 W's and the H on the teacher side, with who's going to do it, where are they going to do it, all the pieces that Leona dug into in greater detail, but you're also going to want to formalize that process on the student side. How do you help your students understand why is progress monitoring occurring for them, and how is it going to move them forward? Otherwise, they will avoid that green box, and you won't have any data that you can use to move forward with your students. So some of the different reports that we can get from Classworks, we're going to go back in, and many of our schools use these, and Leona is going to talk a little bit about these different pieces.
All right, the first one is our universal screener report, and Joanne went over this one in a little bit more detail earlier, but we are going to, just quickly review this one. When the students take the universal screener, you have some information at the top, what grade they're in, what grade they're in, and then the different domains are down at the very bottom. You'll see what they've been tested on. Some things to note about the report, you can see where a student has rushed. That will be the yellow triangle that indicates that a student has rushed. Typically, you want students to spend about 25 to 30 minutes in the screener. One of the things we also can see looking at the PM level, this is a 4th grade student. I'm looking at Stephanie. Her PM level, which means progress monitoring level, is at kindergarten. One of the reasons why she may be at that kindergarten level is because she rushed through. So one of the things that I would consider doing with her is maybe to reassess her to see if kindergarten is really where she is, or if, this is a result of her rushing. However, if we skip down a little bit and go to Jerry, we can also see that Jerry rushed here. I would have the same conversation with him and possibly reassess. However, when you look right under at Alicia didn't rush through here. So maybe her progress monitoring level here is correct based upon her performance. Excuse me. And we see that she spent about 25 minutes in the screener. If we move on down, we can see Melissa and Lindsay are performing at an above grade level. So the good thing about the screener is that it does give you accurate information as to where your students are, and then as to where they will be when they receive their learning plans in Classworks, as well as the recommendations for RTI, progress monitoring.
Right. So if you're looking at this, I think you just said that Alicia would be somebody that you would put on progress monitoring because of the amount of time she spent and the fact that she's still on the 3rd grade level.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
So you're going to get that progress monitoring report list for everybody. So you'll have that PM level for every student, even if you may not need to progress monitor them. What you'll do is use the other factors Leona talked about to figure out who is tier 2 according to this and who you might want to progress monitor. And then we'll go back in and look at Tierra.
Hey, Joanne, while you're in there, can you also show at some point how to reassign the probe if needed? Am I ahead of the game?
No, but we can definitely do that.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I didn't want to interrupt. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. So we're going to do this real quick. We have our recommended skills report. So many of our schools will actually print this and upload it into Infinite Campus or PowerSchool. as part of a documentation stream on Tier 2 students. And we talked a little bit about how you can actually see where this would have come from and why a student has it. And progress monitoring will start to appear as a reason or on the history for why you have that assigned. And then going in, oh my goodness, going in and taking a look at progress monitoring, how you reassign things. Leona, did you want to talk about that, or do you want me to talk about that?
No, you're good. You can go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to take a look here at, oh, nobody in Henley's class has done it. So as Leona said, when I look here, George, we know he didn't have that green box on his login screen. So he's done his progress monitoring this week. This check mark tells the teacher, hey, he's done it this week. So I can actually click below target or on target or to be determined, whichever might be there. And I can say, oh my goodness, I think he had a pretty rough day here. This is definitely, I don't know what's going on with this. Maybe he doesn't understand what progress monitoring is all about. So as a teacher, when you see that check mark, and one of the reasons that you'll want to set an expectation for your students to get progress monitoring done earlier in the week is right here it says reassign. So he has lost 60 scale points since he started. And I'm looking, as Leona said, I'm looking at his time. It's getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So I can have a conversation with George, and I would do this with a conversation. Bring George over, show him the screen if I'm face to face, or share this screen with George if we're virtual, and just say, I'm a little concerned about this. Did something come up? Were there distractions if he's working from home, or if there were distractions in the classroom? And then I can click reassign here, and when I click it, he's going to get that green box one more time this same week, so he can do a different version of that probe. So when you see that he's decreasing like that, that's one thing you'll want to do. The other part you can do is, like, I see stop here. Let's say I'm not sure, maybe I accidentally put her on the wrong grade level. I can actually click stop again, and start her on a brand new set of 12 weekly probes at a different level. So what I would recommend doing is definitely building a formal procedure, both on the teacher side and on the student side. You definitely want them to understand the why, just as well as you want your parents and your teachers to understand, here's the purpose for Classworks, and here are the progress monitoring Classworks, and here is what we're expecting from you as you work through this. I know we've gone right up to time. So really quickly, I know you've got some questions, we're going to address them, but I wanted to make sure I reminded everyone about the AllStar Contest. It is open, and if you're brand new to Classworks, this is an annual contest that we use to recognize the 500 students across the country with the percentage on their unit tests of 80% or greater, and that have the most time on task. So prizes to be won. Definitely encourage your students on the 80% and making sure that they're engaged working. And then also didn't want to forget about, for our teachers, for you all this week and next week coming to the summit, don't forget to get your passport stamped. So if you didn't check in for this session, don't forget. Go ahead and jot that link down. And then Kellen, were there some questions that we wanted to end with?
Well, I believe that we've answered all of them throughout. Okay. But if I haven't, I would love for, ping me again to make sure. Oh, we did have someone ask about being able to other teachers, like their intervention teacher, having access to the students' Classworks work. Maybe that could be something that you touch on.
Okay. Well. Yep, I will definitely touch on those. And then, just like we asked at the beginning about how you've used Classworks in the past, I'd love to know in chat what your plan is going forward. Thinking about the different things that we've talked about, what might you be adding or incorporating into your Classworks implementation in the next couple of months based on progress monitoring and the tiered approach we've talked about today. Everything in Classworks on the Individualized Learning tab and on Progress Monitoring, that's tied directly to the student. And so anyone who is a staff member, a teacher at your school inside Classworks, as long as they have a Classworks account, they're going to be able to see how a student is doing on their individualized learning. So like right now, I have everybody listed here in the school. I can also see everybody under the list in Progress Monitoring. And if you have interventionists and they have a specific caseload or a group of students that they're working with, remember Classworks, we build classes as filters. So they can build their own class. And there's a great article on the Help Center that'll walk you through creating classes. It doesn't take the child out of any other class that they're in. It just gives that teacher a view that looks like this with just the students that they're working with. Even if they're a para or an interventionist, as long as they have an account in Classworks, they're good to go. If you have anyone on staff who does not, definitely double check. If you're not the administrator or the school leader, double check that the leadership team agrees that that person needs to have one. And then you can reach out to our success team, and you can reach them at hello@classworks.com, and they'll be able to support you with adding accounts for any paras or interventionists that are needed.
Or click the chat bubble that's always in the bottom right corner. You can see it on the screen, the little blue bubble.
Yep. I call it the happy little notepad, but yep.
We have another question. Are you going to go over how to upload into MTSS, or do you just download?
Question about that one. Did they mean like into their LMS for their school for MTSS?
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, so
that's a session on the 26th that we're going to. Sorry, I was muted. We'll be doing that session on the 26th as to how to upload into your LMS, if that's what that question is asking.
Right, and we're doing a separate session because we know there are multiple different LMSs that are out there, and so there's a slightly different process with each one. All right, so thank you all. Please don't forget, sign in your passport, get it stamped for the session, and remind your teachers and students that the AllStar Contest is up and rolling. Can't wait to see who our top 500 All-Star students are this year.
Thanks to everyone who was inquisitive and participating and engaging. That makes it so much more fun.
I'll
put the link in here to sign up for it. I'll put the link in here to sign up for additional sessions. Sorry, I just had to mute everyone again. Everything's on our website, and the majority of the sessions are at 9:30 and 2:30, give or take. Some days they might be a little different. And if anybody wants to hang around and ask any questions, we'll be here. Or if you want to set up maybe some time offline to talk, we can hang out and get that set up as well.
This is Serena Mayo from Snow Mountain. I'll hang around for a little bit.
Perfect.
Hello, this is Mrs. Donetta Pearson. I wanted to ask another question. I think I was in of it. I didn't get the link in time, so I wanted to make sure that I was able to see the full session. And I didn't, because I'm still kind of vague at using the program. So where can I find the recording?
The recordings are going to, for all of our sessions, we'll be able, you can access those once the summit is complete. We're trying to encourage live participation.
Oh, once the whole fall virtual session.
Yes, ma'am, which is next Thursday. So once that's done, we are going to post all of these that you'll have access to.
Hey, sorry, Donna, just to, on that note as well, we are doing an encore presentation of this session today at 2:30 Eastern time, if you're available to make that.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And I just used the same link that someone sent to me, right?
We'll send you one for this afternoon.
It's a different Zoom link for sure.
Okay. Okay. So you're going to send it to me, Michael?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay, I would like to ask a question. Of course, I'm new to MTSS, and when I look at the students' plan that they already have uploaded, and after they do the probe for Classworks, and they show that they have other skills that are much more needed. So is that when, of course, in our meeting, we change their goals to meet the other skills that are needed? Because I know the other skills, they build upon each other. So I just want to get a clear understanding, because I've come across that in some of my MTSS meetings where it's that the child should be working on one thing. However, in Classworks, it shows they have other deficits that are needed.
All right. So Sabrina, are you at DeKalb,
Yes.
Georgia? Okay. So let me pull up. Actually, who else do we have in the Zoom right now? I don't want to pull up live student data.
It might be worth you guys going on a side Zoom if there's other people that could.
Okay. Let me move us to a breakout room, Sabrina.
Okay.
If I can here. Hey, I finally have polls. Sorry, but I don't have breakout rooms again. I'm going to ping you a different link. Sabrina, do you have a couple minutes to do that right now? Or do you want to schedule time later?
I could do it now.
Okay. I will set up a new Zoom and I will meet you over there. And that way, because I don't want to violate privacy and have people that aren't part of the DeKalb County Schools see DeKalb students. So
Okay.
All right. So I will send that over to you in just 1 second here. So
all right.
Any other questions from, got about 5 other people, 6 other people. Might just have forgotten to leave. Okay. All right.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right.
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I was just given another grade level, and I want to know, when I create that class, can I create a separate class, or do I have to put them under the same class? I was teaching 3rd grade resource, and now I've been given 4th grade. So do I need to create a whole nother class for that grade level? I prefer doing 2 different classes.
You can do either. You're able to have as many classes and Classworks as you want. We just think of a class as a filter. So you could just go ahead and add a new class and have a separate class for that grade level, if that's what you prefer. And yeah.
Okay. I think I printed something because I did this over the summer. I created the class as soon as they gave me my roster. So I'm going to look back over it and see how I do that.
Well, and just, I'm not sharing, but on your screen, when you, go ahead and up here, and then I'll go over to Ms. Bookman here. When you are in Classworks, if you click on your name up here on the top right hand, help and resources, there's actually a whole section with articles that'll walk you through step by step with pictures on how to create a class. So you can just click that help and resources, and I can just type in create class, and you're going to get a how-to article right there.
Okay. I did. And I printed that on yesterday, so I'm going to go back through that. Thank you so much.
No problem. All right, so I'm going to pop out Kellen, Michael, Leona, and go talk to Sabrina.
Okay.
All right.
Is there anyone else on that has any questions or would like us to go over anything? All right, I think we're good. All right, well, I'm going to sign off. Thank you guys. Thanks everyone for coming.